Hi, Adam from Audio Imperium. Today we're going to be exploring the traditional and contemporary articulations that can be found inside of our new library Poseidon, a brass odyssey. Spanning 2 ensembles and 4 individual sections, Poseidon is a multi-dimensional cinematic brass library that encapsulates both the soft and intimate, as well as the brash and bombastic sides of a brass ensemble. Poseidon includes 2 ensembles, Meridian and Azure, as well as sections including 2 trumpets, 2 horns, 2 tenor trombones, and a bass trombone. Let's explore our first ensemble, Meridian. Now, Meridian is our contemporary ensemble made up of 2 horns, 2 flugelhorns, 2 euphoniums, and 2 trombones. So let's take a listen. And I want to start with the sustains. So these are just good old-fashioned long-held notes in different dynamic ranges that really just show off the sound and the timbre of the ensemble as a whole. Next up, I want to take a look at the muted sustains. Now, muted brass is a classic cinematic and orchestral timbre, and it's one that we really wanted to capture, and I think this particular ensemble just sounds beautiful when muted, so let's take a listen. Now let's take a look at Meridian's marcato articulation. Now, marcato is Italian for marked, and it's a relatively short articulation with quite a firm sudden attack. It's not as short as a staccato or a staccatissimo, but it's still relatively short, and it has that very firm characteristic attack at the front of the note. So let's take a listen to these. Next up, let's take a listen to Meridian's slight bend sustain articulations. Now, these are similar to the long sustains, but we ask the players to waver slightly on their pitches, which creates this really interesting, undulating, kind of ambiguous texture. It's a great accompaniment to the sustains that we have. So let's take a listen to these and see what they sound like. Next up is Meridian's airy texture sustain articulation. Now, this is again similar to the other sustains, but we ask the players to play with a slightly airier, lighter tone. So it's not as deep and rich as a traditional sustain, offers a really interesting additional texture as part of your arsenal. Finally, for Meridian, let's take a look at the air noises articulation. Now, the air noises is a kind of texture, an atonal texture, where we ask the players to blow through the mouthpieces but without the instruments attached. And the result is this really interesting sound that's a bit like rushing water or waves, so fits perfectly with the aesthetic of this particular library. And it's a really, really useful effect. So let's take a listen. Now let's take a look at our other ensemble, the Azure ensemble. Now, the Azure is a slightly more traditional ensemble consisting of 3 horns, 2 trumpets, 2 trombones, and a bass trombone. So let's take a little listen. And the first thing I want to look at is the sustains of the Azure, so we can get a good overview of what this ensemble sounds like and how it differs to Meridian. Next up, I want to take a look at the staccatissimo articulation from the Azure ensemble. Now, these are very short notes, and we have them in both the Meridian and the Azure, but I wanted to show you them in the Azure. I think they've got such a fantastic sound, very cinematic, can be very aggressive, but also very light and playful as well. So let me just play you through some of these. Next up, let's take a look at the flutter sustain. So this is a sustained articulation, but one where we ask the players to create a flutter-like effect on the instruments. It's a really interesting texture, differs slightly from the other sustains that we've heard so far. So let's take a listen. Next up, let's take a look at Azure's trills. Now we have two types of trills. We have halftone and we have whole tone trills. And this is such a great texture, such a great articulation to have in a brass library. Really, really useful, sounds fantastic. Again, multiple dynamic layers, so you can really go from the lowest right through to the highest sort of volumes and levels of aggression. Let's take a listen to these. Now let's move on to the individual sections. So in addition to these two incredible pre-orchestrated ensembles, we also have 4 individual sections, each with their own pretty dizzying array of core articulations as well. Let's start with the 2 trumpets, and we'll start with the sustained patches and just listen to how these sound in their most pure form. So really great, bold, beautiful sound from these 2 trumpets. Let's take a look at the shorter notes. Let's take a look at the marcatos for these trumpets and hear what they sound like. Now let's take a look at the beautiful 2 horns ensemble. Now, 2 horns is obviously slightly more intimate than, say, a 4 or 6 horn ensemble, which would be more traditional in symphonic scoring, but it obviously has a lot more weight and power than a solo horn. It's a great combination and it sounds beautiful inside of this library. So I just want to take you through 2 or 3 of the articulations here, give you a sense of what this is about. Let's start by listening to the slight bend sustains. Let's move on to listen to the staccatissimo. So I think short horns just sound fantastic, and the 2 horns ensemble I think is a great ensemble for short notes. You can really build up these beautiful, interesting, rich chords with them. So let's take a little listen to what these sound like. Now let's listen to the beautiful sounding 2 tenor trombones. Now I love the sound of tenor trombones. They've got such a great range of different functions inside of the orchestra. And I think that this library captures them beautifully. They have a really warm character, but they can still get up to those raspier, brassy kind of dynamics. So let's start by looking at the sustains, where I think these tenor trombones really shine. So as you can hear, a really beautiful, rich, full-bodied sound coming from those tenor trombones. They sound fantastic when playing those kinds of chords and harmonic lines. Let's take a listen to something different with these. Let's take a listen to the staccatissimo and really hear what they sound like at those full dynamics. Finally, let's move on to our single bass trombone. Now, a bass trombone is similar to tenor trombones, except it's a slightly bigger instrument, has a slightly warmer, deeper sound to it. Two tenor trombones and a bass trombone is a very common brass combination inside of a brass ensemble. Let's take a listen to the marcatos. So these are non-muted, marked notes, quite a heavy attack, and then a very short sustain afterwards. But I just think these sound fantastic. Now let's take a listen to the mixes and microphone positions you have available to you inside of Poseidon. There we have our standard, modern and classic mix. Our modern mix sounds like this. And our classic mix sounds like this. We also have 4 individual mic positions that can be used in isolation or blended together to create whatever tone you're looking for. I'm just going to show you each individual mic position in isolation to give you an idea of what they sound like. Here's the solo or close mic. We have the Decca-Tree mics or the main mics that give you a good general room tone for the library. We have the mid mics that are not quite as close as the solo mics to the players, but are a little bit closer than the Decca-Tree that just give you this really nice focused sound with a little bit of room ambience. Finally, we have the far mics that are furthest back in the room and give you a really good impression of the overall room ambience, make the instrument sound a little bit further away than the other mic positions. And of course, these can be blended in any combination that you like to create the sound that you're looking for your piece. So there we go. That's a brief overview of what's available in the core articulation section of Poseidon, a Brass Odyssey. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.